Lesson 6.4, we're going to look at a written plan and record keeping here. So when I talk about a written plan, what I'm referring to essentially is a standard operating procedure, or an SOP. So this is essentially a written protocol for your activities. How you're soaking seeds, how you're sowing seeds, how you harvest and package a crop, what your cleanup protocol is, how you move trays around when you're cleaning your shells. So it's basically written procedures. It's a bit of work, and it seems one of those things, like, especially if you're just a 1 or 2 person operation, writing protocols for yourselves to follow. But this is one of the things that inspectors really look for, is do you have written procedures? How do you do things, and how do you document that? So the written portion does a couple things. Number one, it does give you something to follow. And I have to say that writing the procedures is a very, very good activity, because as you're doing it, you're kind of going through things step by step, either actually doing it or working through it in your head. And it gives you a really good sense of the steps of the process, and where what it actually helps you do is identify certain points in the process that are more crucial than others, especially in terms of contamination. So in hazard analysis and critical control point, or HACCP language, what you're looking for is these critical control points, and these are the points in your process when contamination is likely to occur. So writing your standard operating procedures is a really, really good activity for understanding what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it. They're also particularly good for training new staff. If you do get an inspection and you pull out a binder of all your standard operating procedures, your inspection is going to go so much easier. This is one of the things they're looking for, because it's so standard across the food processing industry and in restaurants and in other facilities that are working with food. So it's probably one of those things that you're rolling your eyes at now, that you don't want to do. But I have to say that having written a lot of this in the past, it is very, very valuable. Part of your procedures also has to be in terms of record keeping. As I've mentioned before, you can write stuff down about what you're doing, but how are you documenting how you're doing it? So there's 2 general ways to do record keeping. And one way is just with pen and paper. You've got a clipboard for different processes and different parts in your facility, and when you complete a certain task, you make a note of it. Sanitize seed, you mark down the type of seed, how much, the rate you did, what you used, and you sign it. So this works pretty well. There's a couple challenges with this. One is that the paper can get lost very, very easily, and it can get damaged really, really easily. It's another one of those things to manage, and I've just found it very tedious, especially in a humid environment where the paper is often just getting wet and sort of curling in on itself. It's just not really ideal. So we designed a really simple electronic way to record this stuff by using Google Forms and Simple Forms. So this is something you can pull up really quickly on your phone, and everything is actually templated. And so, for example, with sunflower here, we would enter the number of trays worth of seed we sanitized, the milliliters of seed per tray, and this stuff is something you're doing all the time, like twice a week. So the numbers are in your head, or they're posted somewhere for quick reference. We're documenting that we've used our sanitizer at the posted rate, and there you can see our parts per million, and then marking the soak time as well. So what we're doing is we're putting this information in. Earlier in the form, it asks for your name, so you're submitting your name, whoever's doing it. And as soon as this gets submitted, it gets written to a spreadsheet that date and time stamps it right away. So it kind of acts like a signature in that way. And this is an easy thing to pull up and an easy thing to reference. It's one of the things you might pull up in an inspection, but it's one of those things that I've pulled up in the past to look back and go like, oh, what was our seeding rate a year and a half ago? I can pull it up and look at that, How many trays did we sow at this time last year? It's a reference I can go to. So it's a really easy way. We do have some sample forms in the additional documentation for the course, so you can take a look at some of them there. And they're really easy to build. I just have like a folder on my phone with a bunch of shortcuts to all the forms we use. It's very, very easy. Another thing you want to keep track of are your harvest numbers. How many trays do you harvest versus how many you sowed? What's your yield? How many bags did you pack? And for this, we have a very detailed spreadsheet, our crop and financial planning spreadsheet. I do have this available as a separate item, but there is some tutorials on how to use it and how it can really benefit your operation. So we generally try to put that information into the spreadsheet right away, because once that information is there and saved, it's really hard to lose it. And we have lost many pieces of paper over the years. So what we've tried to do is find electronic ways to record things so they're documented, they're archived, and they're stored usually in the cloud, so there's very, very little risk of losing them. So yeah, the written procedures is really, really important for understanding what you're doing and how you're doing it, really good for training. And then the forms and the documentation are demonstrating that you are doing it. And these are very, very key things in validating your methods and once again, demonstrating competency if you do have an inspection.